Look what happens when you invite a meteorologist to your commencement. Some pretty nice weather. I did not turn my phone off because I am watching the radar right now. And I will tell you that it's a good thing we are not having this in Sandpoint. But we're going to be good for 2 whole hours. We are just going to be fine. President Prager, Chancellor Johnson, members of the presidential party, faculty, today's graduates, family and friends, I'm very honored and grateful for the invitation to be here today, and even happier that it has turned out to be a pretty decent day. I was sweating it out right until about an hour ago. In fact, you have no idea how much I have been fretting about this forecast for weeks, really. I was having nightmares of addressing 370 graduates in a downpour, mortarboards flying at the stage. You think I'm exaggerating, but the last time I was invited to Spokane Community College, it was for Pie Day, and they threw pies at my face. $5 a pie. I know you would never do that to me here at the Falls. I feel much safer, especially with the sunshine. This is the first time that I've given a commencement address. I do a lot of public speaking in my job. In fact, every day, 3 times a day, but it's only for 3 minutes at a time in front of a camera. And thankfully, I can't see the folks at home watching. Wouldn't that be awkward? I would be really funny. I would like that. A commencement address, however, a very different matter, a serious and important assignment. And so I was a little bit nervous about this invitation until I heard the theme of this year's commencement. The sky is the limit. And if there is one thing that a meteorologist has a little bit of expertise in, it is the sky. This has been an especially tough year to be in the weather business in the inland Northwest, or anywhere in the United States, actually. Nationally, it's been a year of terrible wildfires, record heat waves already, epic flooding, and the tornadoes. Deadly, massive, destructive tornadoes. Here at home, after the winter that seemed would never end, we broke a 118-year-old record for the wettest spring in Washington state history. It was the 3rd coldest spring on record. Here in Spokane, we set the record for the latest date to hit 60 degrees, and we have yet to hit 80 degrees officially in Spokane. The average date for our first 80-degree day is May 12th. Here we are on the 17th, and the record for the latest date to hit 80 degrees was Monday. So we've broken that record, and we're setting a new record every day, and it looks like we're going to keep setting that record until possibly the middle of next week. Well, sitting there in those caps and gowns and suits and pantyhose, you're probably glad that it's not 80 degrees or warmer. It's actually quite nice. But mostly I've been fielding a lot of complaints from people who are ready for change. We'll get 1 or 2 pretty nice days, and then the clouds come back in, and we have showers, and it cools off. Now, it's my philosophy in my business that I need to put a silver lining on all of those clouds. So I try to stay upbeat and optimistic during the weather forecast. At least it's been more than a month since we've had any snow, so there's some improvement. Actually, it's pretty easy for me to stay upbeat because I know that the warm, sunny weather is eventually going to arrive. Old-timers say the sunburn doesn't start in the inland Northwest until after the 4th of July. So I've got some time there. It might not be here as early as in some years. It might not last as long as we'd like. But summer weather will arrive, and that makes me hopeful. As I'm sitting in the weather office at KXLY HD News, trying to put another silver lining on another crummy day, the newscast is going on just a few feet away from me. My office is right there in the studio. And the parallels between our recent weather and the recent economic forecasts are striking. You'll hear a little bit of good news about growth in the economy. I was hearing some today on the radio on my drive over, in fact, and it's like the sun is starting to peek out from the clouds. And then it is tempered by 3 days of bad news about gas prices, unemployment, and real estate prices. I know this has got to be an unsettling time to be graduating and some of you heading out into the job market. But I look at your faces, very bright, intelligent. Many of you are smiling. Some of you are looking at me kind of curiously. And I want to tell you to stay upbeat, because I know that better days are eventually going to arrive. They may not be here as early as you'd like, but just like the summer weather, the economic times will always return, the better times. I graduated from college on a cloudy day in Stillwater, Oklahoma. In fact, it was a day a lot like today, although I think we were under a tornado watch. And it was in the midst of the recession. President Bush was in office, the first President Bush, if that gives you an idea of how long ago that was. And he gave the commencement address at my school. I'm sorry, Barack Obama couldn't make it today. You're going to have to settle for the local weather girl. But President Bush gave the address at my school amidst a media swarm. There's my swarm. That's Carla from KXLY. Hi, Carla. Not quite a swarm, but if you wave, she might put you on TV. The cameras were there because while he did talk a little bit, I think, about our future as graduates, he was mostly there to talk about tensions in the Middle East. He was just weeks away from declaring war in the Persian Gulf. And that war would eventually bring an end to the economic downturn. But it wasn't helping my job outlook as a journalist, for sure. It was bleak. Newspapers and TV stations were hurting, consolidating, laying off, and I didn't see any sunshine in my 7-day forecast. And so I did what probably a lot of you are going to do. I stayed in school, decided to wait it out and improve my outlook with a master's degree. 2 years later, the economy was better and the recession was officially over, for what that's worth. We've heard that. And I had a resume full of degrees, a few awards, some internships. I sent that resume all over creation, very hopeful, knocked on a lot of doors, some of which were slammed in my face. And I ended up, like many of you might be in your first job out of school, or your next job, or maybe you are right now, grossly underemployed. I love that word, underemployed. Doesn't that sound nice? It's a nice euphemism. We didn't have it back then for, boy, you've got a bad job. It seems to be a very common condition with graduates from any school these days. The only thing that I could find was a part-time minimum wage job in the bridal registry department in a department store in my hometown of Idaho Falls. Underemployed, yes. Not my dream job, to say the least. But like most people, I tried to remember to be grateful to have a job. And I registered brides like nobody's business. Boy, it's easy to talk brides into stuff, you know? Oh, you need that. If I was going to work in that department store, I was going to sell more place settings than anyone in the history of holy matrimony. Pay my bills. That is an exaggeration. I did not quite pay the bills, but I did eventually. And I was going to move up, clawing and scratching my way through women's shoes and home electronics and hopefully into the CEO's office of Macy's one day. Or, as I actually did finally, I talked the local TV station into giving me a break to be their weekend weather girl, for much less than minimum wage, I might add. But I was not going to miss an opportunity to improve my situation. It's like standing there at the window with your swimsuit on, waiting for that break in the overcast. They are going to part, those clouds. No matter what the economic conditions are, there are always going to be breaks in the clouds for hardworking, bright people who are willing to make their own luck and who are going to be ready for those breaks. I think this most recent economic downturn is actually going to be a blessing in disguise for you and for all of us, really. Think of the children of the Depression. Surely you've heard the stories from your grandparents, maybe your great-grandparents.